So here's everything you're going to need to reseal your camper. You're going to be dealing with primarily 3 types of sealant. This Proflex RV, is used around your windows, doors, your front cap, around some corners. It can't be used on the roof because it won't adhere to it, and it could probably damage it, I suspect. For the roof, you're going to have 2 different types of sealant. You have, both products are made by Dicor. You're going to have, it's called lap sealant, and you have non-leveling, non-sag, and then you have self-leveling. The self-leveling is for the very top of your camper, for like the roof, say for like the skylights, or around the antenna, areas that are mostly level. You'd use this, and as you pour it on, it's supposed to basically slump out and level itself. And then around the edges of your roof, where it meets like the gutter and the sides, you can't use this because it'll just fall off the camper. So you'd use this, which has a lot less slump to it, and it'll stay in place. You could try to use this in place of your Proflex RV, but with 100% silicone, it's not as flexible, and it's not as UV resistant, and it doesn't adhere as well to camper materials, so they say not to use it. I've had some fortune in the past when I was in a pinch to use this. I have it on one portion of my front cap, and it's actually held up really well for the last 1.5 years. So it's constantly hated on the internet to not use it on your camper, but if you're in a pinch, you can use it. The issue is, once you go with silicone, apparently the only thing that adheres to silicone is silicone itself, so you're going to have to continue to use it until you scrape it all off, and then switch to something like Proflex RV. So to dispense these products, you're obviously going to need a caulking gun, and for areas that you're going to, if you have to do like a whole stretch of sealant, it's going to be best to tape off the area with some painter's tape, so that way you get a nice clean bead. I'm going to use the painter's tape today to just mark the areas that I need to seal, and I'll go into more detail about that later. You're going to need gloves to protect your hands. I say that because this Proflex RV, I was reading the warning on it. You actually can't even purchase this in California because they consider it highly cancerous. So you're going to want to use it in a well-ventilated area, and then don't get any on your hands. Use your gloves. To prep the area before you apply the sealant, you're going to need some soapy water. You can just use some Dawn dish soap, some mild detergent, and some water. And after that dries, you'll then prep the area with some denatured alcohol. Don't pour this on your roof. You'll just pour it on a lint-free cloth like a microfiber towel, and then wipe the area, and then apply your sealant. It's really important when you're sealing your camper that anything the sealant touches is clean from dirt and oils and debris. And then lastly, you're going to need a ladder so that you can get to the upper portions of your windows, the top of your doors, and obviously on top of your roof. So you're going to want to do this seal inspection every 90 days is what the manufacturer recommends. They only warranty the initial sealant that's applied at the manufacturer for 90 days. That's why you have that sticker on your door that says, hey, look at your sealant every 90 days, because this stuff lapses quite frequently, and they can't guarantee it for years at a time. So how you're going to do it, I find best, is work with one sealant at a time. And so my Proflex is going to be everything from the roof down, and then on the front cap down, and the same thing for the rear. I'm not going to use any of the Dicor products anywhere besides the edge of the roof and then on top of the roof. Everywhere that we find like a lapse in sealant, we're going to just take a piece of tape and then mark the area. So if I came over here and looked at the sealant and there's a lapse, I'll just mark it. And the reason for this is if I go all the way around the camper, I don't want to try to memorize all the locations when I try to seal this. And when you're inspecting all these areas, it helps out a lot when you come up to it to actually just press on these areas. And you'll see right here, let me see if I can get the lighting just right, that there's actually a lapse here. But it's not on all this joint, it's just on this portion. So just come along all of your joints. As you inspect it, just press along with your hand, just lightly, to see if the sealant has lapsed or not. This is actually where I used the silicone like a year and a half ago, and you can't really tell from the lighting, but it's actually held up really well. None of it's separated since then. But as I said, go with a ProFlex RV instead. It'll last longer. Alright, so I'm on the side of my camper now inspecting the top of this door seal. So while you're up here is a perfect opportunity to also check the sides of your camper. You'll see here's an example of where the sealant has lapsed. See how there's a little bit of a gap between the sealant and this gutter. And so I'm going to take some painter's tape, mark this area, and you're going to have to check this entire seal all the way down the camper. Alright, so since I have the ladder already here, I'm going to go ahead and prep the area first with my soapy water. And so you'll just take it, wring it out, and just slightly go over where the sealant has lapsed. And you'll see it cleans up really nice. All that dirt will. You obviously, since I have it lapsed here, I don't need to use a lot of water, just to where it's damp. So something I should have mentioned earlier is Dicor specifically recommends that you don't come in here with a scraper and remove any of this old sealant. You'll just clean it off really nice, and then you'll put a bead on top of the areas that there's a lapse. Rarely do they say to remove the old sealant. You just put it right on top. So here's an example of on the front cap. Let's get this to focus. See how I have a crack from here all the way to here? So as I'm driving in the rainwater is going to be coming up and trying to get inside of this crack. And it's cracked over here too. So really pay attention to your front cap, especially along the seal on this side that runs from one end to the other, because that's what's, you don't want water to get in here and then air to start getting in here and it to balloon up the front as it lifts up this glue. So pay really close attention to this side of the seal also. So this process, as you're finding these, I found that it's the quickest. Once you find the area, just carry your bucket and sponge with you and just go ahead and do your first stage of preparation, getting the dirt and grime off. Something I wanted to mention earlier is the first time you do this inspection, you're going to find some areas that were supposed to be sealed, but they failed to do so. Like they forgot to seal on top of this door, but they got the other door, so initially I had to go ahead and seal that, and the same for this window. When you're looking at some of these windows and other compartments, you'll see back here, you might not be able to see it because of the lighting. Let's see. Focus. Alright, so see this like little spongy material? That's like this initial seal that they run all the way alongside the window. And then they'll, put the window in place. And so that's the primary seal. And I found that they pretty much only seal the upper portions when they do something like that to keep the water from just sitting on top and then working its way down. And I think they find that the seal is sufficient to not have sealant along here. Not too sure. I haven't sealed these areas, but that seems to be uniform alongside the camper. Like the compartment doors, they're sealed on top, but then they have that little spongy material behind, and it's not sealed on the side. Some areas that you need to also look at is alongside the edges of your camper. Let's see if I can get this to focus. You'll see here like the sealant they initially did here a while back actually bulged out, and at some other point I had to come in here and fill it in after I cleaned it off. And so that's going to be the same. That seal is going to run just like that. On your front cap, there's actually a bead of sealant that runs between these two adjoining sections, so that when you're driving in that wind and water, you don't want it to get up in there. So make sure you're checking that seal. Alright, so I'm on the left side of my camper now, up on the roof, looking at this sealant. I've already cleaned this area, just to give you some more ideas about where to check. You can see I have lapsed sealant alongside the edge of the roof here, and it's cracked here. And then I have this large hole for this seal And so the seal runs all the way down, and you don't want to get water behind it. And this is a perfect place for water to just sit and then run along that seal. So it looks like some kind of animal has been eating this Dicor product. It must be tasty. And then alongside my master bedroom window on the left side, when I looked at this last year, they had not sealed from here to here. Maybe the guy ran out of sealant that day, so I had to reseal that. And now looking at it this year, it looks like it's all sealed. I can see the sealant, but if I actually push against it, see if I can get it to focus. If I push against it, you can see that it's actually lapsed. Alright, so the slide out has a lot of areas besides the slide out seals that you're going to have to check the sealant on. So you're going to have some sealant alongside here, and then where your seal is attached, I believe there's a whole bead that runs lengthwise with it. And then of course on top of your windows, on top of your compartment, and also on each side of these posts, if you want to call them that, and then the railing that runs all the way across. And the same thing for these little caps right here. And so just come alongside here and press lightly to see if it's lapsed or not. I've already done this, and I found this area down here is, let's see if you can see that. See how I can push, and then you can see that the sealant's not actually adhering to the siding anymore. The same thing here. Alright, so a tool I didn't mention earlier is this plastic razor blade. If you have some areas where maybe you just don't like how the sealant looks, or you don't want to cover over the old sealant with the new, then I'm going to advise using one of these versus like a metal scraper, because the metals, you're going to have a really hard time not tearing up the paint and then these decals, and this is going to be a lot more gentle on it. Alright, so lastly, I'm up on the roof. Probably should have done this first because it's getting really hot outside. So you're going to have a lot of areas, like you have one of your vents for your gray or black water, and you have your other vent over here. This is a cover that was added after the fact for the bathroom vent. You're going to want to take this cover off and look at the sealant. When I had first done that, there were some large lapses alongside here. And then you have your skylights. And so you're going to just be checking this old sealant, as I'd said on the old stuff, for cracks, separation, lapses. You can go ahead and just inspect your roof in general to ensure that while you're towing, you didn't hit any tree branches, maybe you tore a hole in your roof. When you're up here, take off your shoes, as I've done, and just wear socks. So that way, it's just more gentle on your roof. You can bring a flashlight too, so that you don't have to take off this cover for your refrigerator. You can just look on the side and take a look at that sealant. So you're going to have this second skylight cover. Let's come along here, and I've got a little bit of cracking in this area here, a little bit of separation. So I'll go ahead and clean that off. And then lastly, you have your antenna, and sealant runs alongside there. Alright, lastly, I have some denatured alcohol on this lint-free cloth. You're going to just come to each portion that you have marked and wipe it down. Alright, we're going to start off with the ProFlex RV sealant first. You're going to want to cut the tip of this off at a 45-degree angle. And then there's an inner seal that you have to puncture. And your caulking gun should come with a little probe that you put in there several times and puncture that seal. Load it in the gun, dispense it until it's about to come out. And then try to get this right the first time so that you don't have to use the spoon. Then you're going to just apply it like so. Alright, so there's going to be some areas that after you apply it, it might not have got a good seal. So you can just wet your finger or use the spoon and then just come alongside and smooth everything out. It'll look a lot better and it'll seal better. And then you can just carry around a rag with some denatured alcohol on it. Alright, so I'm doing the edge of the roof now. So if you don't tape it off, because you don't care how it looks, just go ahead, start your bead, and Run it about this thick. Got a little bit of a lapse there until you're finished. Set this to where it hangs off the roof because it's going to continue to leak out. And then you can come back through with your finger. Try to mold this the best you can. So that way you get a nice good seal. It doesn't look too bad. You definitely want to try to get rid of any air bubbles that have formed. If you want a straighter line, you could tape it off like I said. Alright, just finishing up. Go ahead and do a final walk around your camper. Ensure that you have all the blue tape off. Consider that in this video I didn't show all the areas I looked at, and I could also have missed some areas, and your camper could vary from mine, so just use the pattern of what I was looking at to mimic your own trailer.